All right. So this is season 1, episode 5 of Money Talk, the podcast hosted by Becoming Financially Fit. I am Stacey Blunt, and I'm here with my distinguished guest here, Mark Key II. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Thank you.
With Becoming Financially Fit, we talk about personal finance, financial literacy, savings, investing, and we also throw some entrepreneurship in there as well. But we have a very interesting talk today. I'm here with my guest, Mark, and we're going to be talking about a bunch of different things. He is another Ohio native. We have a bunch of Ohio guys out here in New York, so I thought it would be great to get Mark on the show. But just to give you guys a little bit of background about Mark, he is from Ohio, Central Ohio, as am I. He did college at an Ivy League school, Cornell. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to give Mark a chance to, kind of talk about his background a little bit, and then we can get into some of the show. So I'll let you talk through it.
Yeah. As Stacey mentioned, I'm originally from Columbus, Ohio. I happened to go to Cornell University. The sport of football was a vehicle both of us used. Definitely. So football came and introduced me to Cornell University. I spent a great 4 years up there playing ball, and have since kind of become a healthcare guy. When you're looking at my career, I spent some time down in Miami, spent some time selling medical supplies down there, and then I transitioned into a role at Deloitte, actually helping hospitals procure and buy hospital supplies and different ways of helping them save money through different cost savings measures. Never touched anything staff related or anything like that, but just basically helping them become more profitable.
Yep.
And then that actually, my background in healthcare kind of brought me actually to my position now, which is assistant fund manager of Local 731, a construction labor union here in the New York 5 boroughs. And there I work in the benefits fund, which is an annuity fund, a pension fund, and a healthcare welfare fund, which kind of calls into my background a little bit as far as knowing some of the business side and clinical side of the health world. And I now function in that role for the past couple of years. So I've hopped around a little bit, and I reached out to Stacey. In that sort of those movements and things like that, I've had to kind of learn about my own personal finance, the financial world as at a macro level, and just kind of planning my own life and with those moves, sort of how I'm kind of keeping track on retiring and all that. So
okay, so now let's jump right into it. I want to talk about your personal finance progress because before we were doing the show, you kind of had your sheet laid out. So I want to talk about your financial, progress from being a high schooler on the west side of Columbus, Ohio, right? Up until the point right now where you're making pretty significant income. Right. We'll get into some specifics about that, but just talk about the progress. Like, how did you first learn about, money, the bigger picture, right? And then talk about where you are now.
Yeah. No, I mean, I originally reached out because kind of coming from, my blue collar sort of family background, finance was sort of, we knew it. We knew what it was. We knew the banking, but we didn't really know, how it functioned. And you look at buying stocks and things like that. And in college, it was always kind of foreign to me, and it was a world I was kind of honestly intimidated from. Yeah. I didn't really. It was conversations that weren't really being had in my home. There's a story about how my mom was approached at one point in time about a British petroleum company coming to the States, and her advisor asking her, hey, do you want to put a couple $1,000 that you have available into this company? And she was like, I'm actually, we're planning a trip to Barbados, and that's kind of, that's where it is. And that was the British Petroleum Company. BP. That was 30 some years ago at this point in time. So that was really kind of the stock story of the family, about the missed BP opportunity. So it's kind of been approaching people, that are in the financial industry and sort of figuring it out. But it was actually probably not, I graduated in 2011. It was probably around 2013 that I finally, started contributing to my own 401k and my 401k match. I was at Cardinal Health at the time. That I started really starting to put money towards there and kind of seeing what everybody always talks about. If you put the money away, you see the investments come back, you see the compounding interest, you start to see some of that stuff. And that was kind of really just blindly putting money. I didn't even know how much money I had until I would like look like 2 years later, like, oh, there's 20 grand there. I never had 20 grand.
Yeah, exactly.
At one point in time. So that was kind of my initial one. And then I think it's probably around 2014, 2015, I started to figure out some more. And then it was in 2016 when somebody actually was like, hey, I think this is going to be a good company to invest in. I was like, how do you invest? They had Fidelity. I saw the $5 a trade. I was kind of like, okay, well, I got to make sure this trade is worth it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's kind of when it all started to bloom from there. And then in my current role, I've had some more time to kind of figure out about just kind of the really intricacies of options and doing some different things like that in ways that other people make more money. And it's not as simple as just buying a stock and holding on to it and hoping that Amazon does really well. So that's kind of where I started, I think, around the time.
Okay. And growing up, did your parents actually have those conversations with you? And not necessarily about investments or savings or anything like that, but just about how you should use your money and not just spend it.
Right. I think it was never really any goals or anything that was, save this much of your income. It was really just not being boneheaded about your money decisions to a degree. It was one of those things where you come from too. You know what your parents sort of make and how you live off of that. You know what I mean? And then when you're a first generation college student, I went to school knowing that whatever I did get into, it had to make sense money wise. Yeah. It had to, I wasn't going into, I wasn't going to be one of those people that didn't have a job that could, pay for my bills or pay for my loans or anything like that. So it was really, you're kind of in uncharted territory because you have a certain amount of money that your parents probably didn't necessarily have to invest or
as a starting salary, maybe, right?
Right. You're 24 years old, you're like, man, the 100K was the number that was like the glass ceiling. Always like, man, if I can make 100K, like that's going to be like, I'll be able. My parents' home is only $1,500, mortgage. If I can make that a month, that's. If I can clear that and have that, then I'm doing all right. So no, not really. I mean, I didn't have any sort of Mark, you should put your money in investment in these index funds, or you should be looking at CDs or anything like that. It was really sort of all self-taught. YouTube and everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
YouTube is huge, right? You can almost find anything you want just by searching for it, right?
Exactly.
But a lot of people don't know where to start, and it can be a little overwhelming at times. And so that's why I started this platform, actually, just to kind of start the conversation so people can actually just start to think about, okay, I'm making X amount of money, or here's how much other people in different fields are making, right? And so I got a lot of feedback about me, just point blank asking people, hey, what was your salary starting out, coming out of college?
Right.
What's your salary now? Because that's not a conversation a lot of people talk about.
Exactly.
I really didn't even have that conversation with my parents. I just kind of knew that they were supporting me. We were growing up, and that's how it was, right? But I do want to get into some personal information from you. So tell me about your salary going through the ranks, right? You started out in Ohio,
right?
Now you're out here. So tell me your progress that you first started out as far as salary and to where you are now. Right.
So I think I was actually doing commercial real estate. I did a year of commercial real estate in Columbus, back where we're both from, out of graduation. And to be honest, I went into college just knowing I wanted to help out companies. I wanted to end up what basically is management consulting. Kind of not coming from the business world background, I figured that everybody that was in management consulting had 20 years of experience elsewhere, and they just now they were bestowing their business acumen on the rest of the world. I didn't really know that was a career that I could really get into. So after college, I was 6 or 7 months really looking for the right fit for me, looking for the right job, looking for the right opportunity. I had some salary requirements that were probably a little bit tough on what I wanted to have, but I actually ended up settling on taking a job that was $40,000 back in Ohio.
Yep.
So I had enough money.
What year was that?
That was 2011.
Okay.
2012 is when I started the job in February 2012, and then was doing that for a year. Had somebody talk to me a little bit about medical device sales and some of the numbers that could be made there, and in the selling world, and and kind of being a football guy and being able to talk to people, that was one of the selling points I had for sales for myself. And I moved kind of to Miami at that point for a job with Cardinal Health, making $65K.
That's a huge bump,
65,
right?
70K. Yeah. I mean, I was like, whenever you can double your money or at least half a 150% increase is a good one. So I took that opportunity. It was an opportunity I could make more money, the more I sold.
And that was commission based?
That was commission based. It was a base of about 40, so about what I was making before. And then if you had a good year, you got about another 30,000. It could be uncapped, but you were basically going to make another 30 to 40 grand depending on the windfalls of the market that you were selling in and everything like that. And then what I also saw is when you had a really great year, your next year's targets were based off of that year. So it was like a good year, a bad year, good year, bad year. And then really through that opportunity, I started to talk to more people in management consulting and kind of figured out that whole dream as a kid of actually there's people who are in their young 24 years old who are going to these companies and kind of helping them grow and helping them find new opportunities in the market. And then through my healthcare background, I figured I could help hospitals, and that's kind of how I spun myself to Deloitte and got in that management consulting gig. And they paid me about $90K
as a base salary.
As a base salary, there were some bonuses there and everything. But
and your progression from going from $40K to $90K, how long did that take?
That was about a 2.5, 3 year sort of hustle.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. I had some good conversations and some good talks with people. But Deloitte was taking a chance on me. Certain people, I was probably one of the lesser paid people in my world, just because I wasn't coming from an MBA background. I don't have an MBA. And I've been in the industry for a little while. I was what they call a subject matter expert to a degree, in the fact that I was lower on the level as far as consultant level. I was a base consultant. There's an associate level that you come into out of undergrad, and out of MBA you come in as a senior consultant. So I was right in between those two. Yep. And even though I was in that more junior position, I had a lot more background in the hospitals and things like that. I could sit in the rooms with chief medical officers, and I could understand the business side of the conversations. I could actually contribute to some of those conversations. So that's kind of how that was their kind of flyer on me. And then I was also at a Deloitte.
And when you were in Deloitte, was that still in Columbus, or was that?
That was actually when I moved to New York.
Okay.
So I was in Florida, Southern Florida. Great place to spend your young 20s, you're part of your 20s. And I kind of lived by like a motto of I'm as broke as I'm ever going to be. Yeah. So I was like, personal finance was kind of second tier. Having a good time, enjoying my 20s was really the goal. I was the guy that was in Miami. If we were in Miami,
you earned it.
Right. So when I got to Deloitte, that was actually more time for me to let me really look at my savings. Let me figure this out. And that's kind of, I learned from some of the people there. I worked with some great people. That was my buddy who I was working with, my friend Tyler, who was like, hey, let's invest in this. It's a British company. Actually, we have to do it on Fidelity. We can't do stash.
It's like an ADR type thing.
Exactly. So that was at Deloitte. And then I was at Deloitte for 2 years, and I was starting to hit a crossroad of getting my MBA. How am I going to, where am I really going to settle down? And I actually tried out transferring to LA for a little while, ended up coming back to New York.
How long was that process when you moved from New York to LA?
I was here for a year, and I was looking at if I'm going to settle. And then I moved to LA, and it was kind of like didn't really tell anybody. And then I was kind of like, let me see how it feels. But so much of my project base was in New York, and I worked on a project in Michigan, worked on a project in Cincinnati, I worked on a project outside of Boston, and I worked on a project actually for the VA in DC. So a lot of our base was based on the East Coast. So I was flying like red eyes to go to work every week and everything, and it just wasn't going to really work out. Because the way the management consulting world works is each partner has a niche for what they sell to the market, and if it's hospitals, banks, whatever it may be. And so you basically everybody kind of works underneath one or two different partners who work in very similar areas.
Yeah.
And the partners that I had worked under, they were basically, I was on their team constantly. I didn't have that whole like, oh, this week I'm working on an art deal in Paris, and this week I'm working on some supply chain thing in China. It was I was working in hospitals every time.
And is that something that you wanted to do, or is it just because you built the rapport with those two partners that you were kind of pigeonholed a little bit?
The way I was brought in was basically I was going to work for those two partners.
Yeah.
I had to kind of sell to them my expertise in this area, and it was a cheap resource because they literally staff you like, okay, you know, how many hours can this hospital is going to pay this many hours for this level of employee. They're going to pay this much hourly for this level of employee. So I was kind of like a very good resource at a very good price for them.
Yep.
Which I was fair with. This what I knew. I was able to like walk into some rooms that I didn't think I could walk into and actually have some good dialogue with that. And then in that whole process, when I was at that crossroads, a buddy of mine at Local 731, where I'm currently at, we kind of had the conversation of the travel 4 or 5 days a week, working 60, 70 type of hours, banking type hours. And we had one of those conversations of, what will it take? What were you looking for to kind of move away from that? And it was a point where I was very happy.
Yeah.
And then I moved to the Local 731 with that conversation.
I want to talk about Local 731, and we can discuss, what they brought you in salary wise. But I want to know what you're actually doing on a day to day.
Yeah, on a day
and what brought you there as well.
Yeah. So what I'm doing on a day to day is the labor union is a construction labor union. The biggest way I kind of talk about a high picture is a construction man or woman is working in the field. And for every hour that they work, they basically get, say, $45 to their paycheck. And another $45 comes to their benefits fund. And that's the position I'm in. I am basically number 2 guy there. What was told to me is kind of, there's a guy who's going to be retiring in a couple of years. We need you to learn from him. And we really need to get this company brought into the 21st century as far as just overall capabilities and how everything operates. And so they get paid $45 in their check, and then they get another $45 to their benefits. Yep. That goes towards their health care, their pension, their annuity. And my office is essentially in charge of administrating that for the member, keeping track of all of it, and kind of just letting the funds grow. We invest the funds with the help of money managers, and then essentially when they retire, they come to us, and then we administer all their health care benefits, make sure everything's okay. I deal with things as far as their appeals for when they get huge bills that they shouldn't have gotten. I handle those. I handle divorces. I handle everything pretty much under the sun. And so what drew me to that opportunity was really the ability to lead a team. Yep. I kind of, I wrote a list of pros and cons for leaving that job because in all honesty, Deloitte was the precipice for a kid like me who wanted to be in the business world. Coming from Ohio, I was in the business world, going to 30 Rock, going to these meetings, helping people like grow. Like that was to me, that was validation that I can make it. I can make it in the world. Somebody could listen to me and gain value and save millions of dollars off of ideas that I had. You know what I mean? Or even, ideas I executed on that were, handed down from my partners and such. And so I kind of was at that point, and for me to find something that was the ability to manage off the bat 40 people
as soon as you walk in the door,
that was like, wow, you know what I mean? It's a fund that's nearly between the 3 funds. We're getting close to $3 billion.
Wow.
There's a lot of
AUM.
Yeah. There's a lot of people who, in that blue collar background, as far as where I'm coming from, I'm helping out guys that aren't necessarily sophisticated, and they don't even sit in front of a computer every day. They're in a hole digging holes, and literally in the subways at JFK, at LaGuardia. Those are the people that I'm helping give them the financial future that me and you were talking about, because the market necessarily isn't built around pensions anymore. It's built around annuities. So there's no saying just because a guy has worked for 30 years digging in a hole doesn't mean that he can't
That
sophistically retire.
Maybe our grandparents, right? They will do that whole process, work 30 years, get their pension, and be cool.
Exactly.
Even though their pension might only, replace their income, but if they live for another 30 years, then what are you going to do, right? And that's where some people, like, sometimes, and I don't know if you guys do this, but you kind of adjust that pension over time based off of the cost of living.
Right.
But a lot of people were only getting a couple $1,000s for 30 years of work. And I don't know about you, but I didn't want to do something like that.
Right. Well, I think to be honest, I think a lot of our generation, they had the parents who worked someplace for 25 years and then they got laid off.
Yeah.
And they lost their pension.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think I think we all saw that, and we saw that kind of like, man, these people were really, really loyal, and now they kind of got screwed out of a lot of money that they thought had come into them. And kind of seeing the health and everything of this organization that I'm a part of, a lot of people sit in front of a computer every day. They can see like, okay, this is how I invest. This is how I can learn how to do so much of the stuff I've learned just by like
on the job training
at lunch, just
having those conversations.
Brains.
Exactly.
When you're in a subway tunnel digging all day, you don't have necessarily that time to kind of grow your knowledge base. So it's a beautiful thing for me to at least have somebody who's 65 years old who has given so much of the city of New York, built New York, and
you're able to invest.
And I'm able to them and say, hey, okay, now you have an annuity that's worth $1 million because you never touched it, and you're going to get $6,000 a month in your pension. That's like, to me, that's good. You know what I mean?
Now they can live life because they've been working hard for 40 years, right? Breaking their back, like you said, in the subway tunnels. In New York, or working on a freeway or something like that, building these huge skyscrapers that New York has, right? Now they can actually enjoy that, but it takes a long time. And I really don't want to wait 40 years to enjoy my life.
Right. Exactly. I mean, the way I approach it is the benefits that I get out of it is kind of like, it's my safety net. You know what I mean? So like, I'm going to retire comfortably if I don't do anything. If I blow every check that I have, I'm gonna have the ability to have something when I retire. Yeah. And then everything else that I kind of do in my personal finance is all gravy.
Let's talk about your personal financial picture, right? I want to know how much you save out of each check. How much you invest. Do you have any type of budget? Talk through that process of, okay, I got my check on. If you get paid every 2 weeks or the first and the 15th. Right. What's your process of, okay, I got my check, now what do I do with it?
Right. I think I'm personally kind of I just hit some milestones. Yeah. So I'm
talk about it.
I'm sort of I'm sort of in that process of building what that budget may look like and everything. But kind of big picture, I wrote this thing down. I opened a Robinhood account at one point in time. I think it's in 2015 I opened a Robinhood account. I did the personal financing with my buddy, Fidelity, and then I opened a stash account in probably September 2017. Mm-hmm. And that was my first vehicle. And that was just trying to get like $200 every week. Yep. Just put it in there. And that grew to about not even 9 months, like $10,000, $15,000 that I was looking at. And then I moved from Stash because I actually found a company called Personal Capital.
I know Personal Capital, yeah.
And Personal Capital, that's really what helped, is sort of like my vessel for like, where do I start? Where do I grow from there? And it basically lays out all your assets, all your liabilities, all my student loans I could put all in there. And then I moved from Stash to M1, and that kind of became M1 Finance. Yep. And that kind of
app, and they also have a platform, online platform as well.
Yep. And that M1 actually tied into Personal Capital, and that was the main driver for moving to M1 because I could just kind of all see it there. I was able to save up a certain amount of money to basically pay off my student loans. So that was
wow. And how much were your student loans?
They were I had about $30,000
from Cornell.
When I graduated. So I paid those off this fall, and so that was kind of like my first goal was, okay, pay off the student loans, and then Personal Capital also tracks your net worth and kind of give you a net worth money, and so that number finally hit $100,000 this past year.
Congratulations!
So it was this past January. So yeah, those are kind of like those were like two big pat on the backs for myself, and then now I'm just trying to figure out how to grow that and kind of figure out kind of how to manage that. I'm trying to come around with a number, probably around $2,000. I'm doing some things as far as planning my meals better, planning, just getting everything organized, as far as different budgeting tips, and kind of, that whole motto of the brokest I am ever going to be is kind of, it runs out, so I'm trying to figure that out. But I would like to make some goals, and then kind of figure it out from there. But I'm also now starting to get into some of the more risky stuff around options and Robinhood and everything like that. So it was funny because the Robinhood account I opened, I threw like $250 in it.
Yep.
And I bought, with the healthcare background, there was a couple of different things. There's like an FDA website. You can really see what everything that's supposed to come for trial and everything like that. And I bought into a AXSM. It's like an Axum therapeutic, like a central nervous system. And I bought, what was it?
And that was just speculation?
Speculation. I bought 9 shares at $3.35 a share. That company is trading at $100 a share right now. So like that got for me like, okay, let's figure this out. I can, let me see how this is going to go.
Yeah.
And so now kind of using that sort of play money really to like kind of chop off some of those goals. And now I'm starting to figure out, okay, how much do I want to just put in M1? I would like to just put like $2,000
a month or
a month in M1 and just like have that money sort of gain, and then have how much money do I want to have from Robinhood to kind of play with some of the options. And just trying to see if I can have some things pop. I've lost a good amount of money. Yeah. I've gained some of the money. This week's been a rough week.
Yeah.
This has been a rough week
for
the market. And so I'm all just kind of figuring all that out. And then that's really why I was turning to you and asking you sort of my next big goal is I don't want to pay for my rent anymore. I'd love to buy something.
And what that means is that we're going into real estate. We'll touch on that topic next.
All right, cool.
Okay, let's jump into real estate because you mentioned something super interesting. You said you no longer want to pay your rent. Right? That's one of your goals. And so in order to do that, you can do a couple things. You can live for free, and you have 2 different methods, depending on someone else, or buying a place for yourself, right? And to actually invest in a mortgage. I would say a lot of people think of a mortgage as debt, but I think it's an investment, if you use it the right way. And you said that you want to use that as a way to, kind of build some assets outside of just normal investments or 401k, things like that. So I want you to talk about your progress of thinking, okay, now we live in New York, rent is sky high, right?
Right.
A mortgage will not only allow you to get an asset as far as a home, but it'll allow you to invest in yourself. So talk through that process of when like the light turned on and said, you know what, home ownership might be for me. Yeah, no,
I mean, I think it's always I think that's part of the American dream at the end of the day, is owning your own real estate and really having something that you're putting forward. That's the most basic cornerstone of generational wealth. That's it's something that we talk about each other, as far as where we come from. I come from a more blue collar background, but my parents still have a home that they have a mortgage on and that they have a good deal on, and it's appreciated. They told me the last time how much it was worth. I was like, it's like 20% more than I was expecting. So I think that's kind of always the goal. I think New York is very intimidating from a mindset of how much money you actually need to get into it, and I think that's kind of where. Personally, I think that's kind of where I see a wall a little bit, but I think just having my student loans paid off, that's kind of like my next step. You know what I mean?
And do you want to buy something that's maybe like a condo or an apartment or a single family, or do you want to venture out into something that's more on the investment side, like a multifamily unit where you can kind of live in one unit and rent out the others?
Right. I mean, ideally, I would have it all. Yeah. I would have both. That's kind of, honestly, something I was going to ask you about. Coming from Ohio, we kind of see our friends and family, they are able to make these purchases almost like you're thinking like, well, if I lived in Ohio, it would be easy to just.
Exactly.
It would cost, if you had $50,000 in Ohio to put towards a down payment on a home, you're doing something big.
Exactly.
As opposed to in New York, you have a start.
Exactly. and sometimes not even $50,000 is a start out here, which is, it's a little daunting, right? Because if you think about it, most times, if you want to get some type of investment property and you don't want to pay mortgage insurance, you're going to have to put down 20 to 25%. Right. And so I was looking at some properties in the Brooklyn area because Manhattan's very expensive. And I actually live in Brooklyn, right? And so I looked at a property that was, I want to say a duplex, going for $1 million. right? And so then if you do that same math, I would have to put down $250,000 just to get in there.
Right.
Just to walk in the door. Whereas if I'm putting down $250,000 in Ohio, I can buy almost an entire block. Right?
Exactly.
I can buy 4 or 5 properties, like you said, with $50K down. I can do a lot of damage. But out here, you kind of have to do a different perspective, and you kind of have to say, should I, go back to Ohio and get some investments, or, should I kind of just boss up and do it out here? So my next goal, and I'm happy you were talking about some of your goals, is my next goal is to actually save up enough to be able to put something like a 200 or 250 down on $1 million property. And what I want to do is, in order to allow me to pay that mortgage down, live in one unit and rent out the other 3. The cool thing about that is you can get one mortgage on a 4-plex. And so what that means is you'll have one payment. Although you do own all of the 4 units, it'll be under one address. It'll be like apartment 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Gotcha.
You can live in one as your principal residence. And I think sometimes the down payment can be 3.5% to 5%. But if you don't want to pay mortgage insurance, you're going to have to put down, like I said, 20 to 25%.
Okay.
And so when you get into there, not only will you have $250,000 of instant equity, but now you have 3 other units. And we know the New York rent out here is high, right?
Right.
That can actually, you can take all that money, pay your mortgage, and you can live for free.
Right.
And so adding that to some of the other things you talk about, right? You don't have student loans, right?
Right.
You're building up some investments on the side. And now imagine living for free, using all of your extra income to live for free, and you're making income to cover your mortgage.
Right.
That's one of my next goals out here in New York.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's if I could somehow replicate, that's the same type of stuff that I would like, but there's trying to be conscious of the fact that I have an FHA loan out there. Mm-hmm. I don't know if my income, you know what I mean? Do I still qualify to be able to receive one of those? I can't use those for investment. Do I want to use those for my own place? Can I do something like that with a condo?
Yeah.
With a co-op? Because as a majority of everything you're going to look at in New York is going to be one of those 2. I know sometimes they want to have you to have 20% down. So it's just kind of like, it's almost on my goal is to make a goal that I need to have. It's kind of like, if I could be in March and already know kind of, okay, here's my path. That's kind of where I'm at right now.
And do you know your timeline? Do you want to do it within the next, let's say, year, 5 years? What's your kind of mindset on that?
Yeah, I would love. I mean, my lease is up next May.
Yeah,
and if I'm not able to buy something by next May
in a couple months, or next year,
2021, May of 2021. If I'm able to buy something, that would be ideal. If not, I want to have I want it to be my last lease that I kind of sign with that in mind.
Mm-hmm. And how old are you?
I'm 30.
Okay.
30. So, I mean, it is what it is. It's time to, it's time. It's ability, and I try not to be too hard on myself, just from the standpoint of, I was only making so much money. And even if I saved 20% of it when I was making $40,000, that's only $8,000, which is now something I try to save, in a couple of months.
Exactly.
So just trying to figure all that out. But yeah, I would like to say I would like to try and figure it out. Having a mortgage broker I can kind of talk to and kind of figure out what my options are and everything like that is sort of the goal.
Yeah, and it's a whole entire process, right? And like you were saying, a mortgage broker, that's only one piece of the process.
Right.
You have to have a mortgage broker. You have to have a realtor, right? That's actually going to work for you. Sometimes you might have to get a lawyer involved because we're out here in New York and some of the contracts are a little bit more complicated. So you have to have all of that ready and to go, right? When you're actually going to look at properties. You have to be pre-approved.
Right.
And there are a bunch of things that come with pre-approval. And so I do want to touch on a couple of those topics, like having some type of emergency fund or funds set aside in case you lose your job for 6 months, a credit score. If you want to get the best rates, you have to have a 720 or above, right? Mm-hmm. Some of those things that a lot of people think about too late.
Right.
When if they were to think about this, let's say a year out from making that purchase, it could help them out and save them so much money. So when you're actually thinking about, buying a house or buying real estate out here in New York, are those some of the things that you thought about as far as, here are the things I also need to check off that a lot of people forget about that'll help me out in the long run? Right.
I think about that 2015, 2016 time frame was when the time I moved from Cardinal Health living in Florida to New York. Working for Deloitte, and that was kind of the time. In Florida, it was a sales job, so I had a year that was not as great as my first year.
Yep.
And I kind of had I got a credit card out. Mm-hmm. It was only like $5,000 limit, but I did have it up like it was staying around $3,000,
Yep.
just to kind of like pad the expenses a little
And the
bit.
payments on that were about
Right.
$75, $100.
Oh
maybe.
yeah, and I've never had a credit card that was less than 20% in interest, but I can get into that a little bit later. But basically, I created a credit card payoff sheet,
Yep.
Excel spreadsheet, and I kind of had that down. And I think around that time, my credit score was probably around the 700s.
Yep.
And then I had that paid off probably since 2017. I haven't carried any really credit card debt. Past the month to month, and I've now graduated into where I'm using the credit cards instead of the credit cards using me.
Exactly, using it to gain points.
Yeah, exactly. So I've had around 800, 820. I've been around there for a couple months. I pay off my student loans. I actually hurt my credit score, which I'm sure you can get into everybody.
Exactly.
I had my history of my debt went from 14 years to 6 or 7 years of average credit history. So that factors it in a little bit, but me not knowing I don't need to mortgage anything for another year or so, I knew that was going to all even out a little bit.
Yep.
So really, credit was one thing, and then just making sure I can try and have some of that saved, because I was sitting at a point where I'm like, okay, my credit score is an 815. Say, I'm making close to $200,000 a year.
Yep.
I am I don't have any debt really. What should I do? You know what I mean? Like, where do I go? You know what I mean? I don't have $100,000 to just put in and gain 10% every year, 4% every year. But, how do I get to that point? How do I kind of get to that out of this sort of like purgatory of, I'm in great financial health, but how am I going to make it work for me?
Exactly.
How do I make my credit score work for me?
How can you start building that generational wealth?
Right.
Yep.
And every day you can see how it matriculates, it adds up, and it multiplies over itself. So, with that being said, kind of positioning myself to be ready for, kind of this savings and everything like that to kind of make those moves is kind of where I'm at with it right now.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned one thing about using your credit card and not letting it use you.
Yeah.
Right, because most people fall into the whole cycle of building up some type of debt and paying it off little by little, and you're paying so much interest. It almost makes it unattainable to actually pay it off. But you said that now you're getting to the process of paying off everything.
Right.
Getting those points and actually using the credit card instead of making it use you. So I do want to ask you this question. When did you start making your money work for you instead of working for your money?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was probably 2016, 2015. I was coming into Deloitte, and it was like it was everybody kind of put down their Chase Sapphire Reserve. That was hot on the streets. That was JP. Shout out to JP Morgan Chase Sapphire. They hit a gold mine with that one.
They did. Everybody was getting the points, and everybody. Doesn't matter who it was. As soon as the bill came,
that welcome bonus was, everybody was trying to hit that. So that was personally, my mom kind of raised me as get the credit card with the best APR, and we kind of just use it as a mini loan, or when you needed something and things were a little tight, that was kind of put it on the credit card, we'll pay it off, we'll pay the payments on it. And that was the MO. Avoid an annual fee and get the lowest APR. That was our thing. And kind of that mindset really kind of changed in 2015, 2016 when I started reading on the Sapphire Reserve. Okay, how much do I need to spend to get my money back? And it was like, at that point in time, a $450 fee was like, you get $300 back immediately in travel credits. You get every time you spend any type of money at a restaurant or a food establishment, you get your 3% plus the 3%. So it's like 6% you get on that. And then I have my TSA pre-check through that, like everything. So that's probably the time I really started to, okay, this is something that can be a vehicle for me. And I mean, I've traveled for free. My girlfriend lives in England, is from England, so I've those Christmas flights, those are the points.
Free stays
we've gone
at
on
hotels,
vacation, hotel stays, and then I just recently got the American Express Platinum. So like now I have two different cards who I kind of use those to kind of sort of make me money, and the lifestyle that I live kind of gets rewarded back to me because I was spending that money, either way. So I think that was definitely a learning experience from that of what I grew up and what I use these vessels for to what I use them for now are completely different things.
Completely different,
And
right? At first it was a lifeline.
Right.
Now you're using it to your advantage.
Right.
Because you're doing things like free flights or free stays at hotel or cashback because you're going out to the normal restaurants that you would be going out to before paying cash. But now since you're using your card, you're just doubling your money, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a really cool thing, and it's really one of those things of like how the other side lives. You know what I mean? And it's kind of it's one of those kind of things you have to learn, and you try and pass back and give to people, and get this credit card.
And I wrote this as one of my talking points, and I said, why is it so difficult for our community?
Right.
And I think you know what I mean when I say our community, to have open and honest discussions about money and finance.
I mean, I think it's tough. I think there's certain people who are just anxious about what people ask from them when they say it. You know what I mean? And it's not about I'm all about sharing the knowledge. I would love for everybody in my connection that doesn't have has questions around any of the areas that I think I have answers to, or even can we can talk about it together. I love chatting with those things. And I think just people are sometimes protective, and I think people are a little bit worried about people looking down on them or attaching their actual worth to their net worth or to their actual worth to their salary. And that's not what it's about. It's about uplifting everybody. And it's about having those discussions, just because I was talking to somebody about this, and so much of my financial path, I have here a whole sheet of I opened a stash account, opened a personal account, opened a Robinhood account, opened an M1 account. And there's so many things that I've devoted thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in strategies I've had based off of 5 or 10 minutes conversations where somebody passed some game on to me.
And the light comes on and you're like, oh, okay, right. If I invest in this, then I can do this, right?
Somebody goes, oh yeah, here's how options work. And I've probably now spent 5-10 grand in options in the past 6 months off of 10-minute conversation I had with somebody, which was followed by 4 to 8 hours probably of videos and understanding and research. Yep. And so those 10 or 15 minutes was a catalyst to learn so much more. So I just don't think people are having those conversations and are sophisticated. I mean, this is all very new for the common person. You know what I mean? Is. Even 10 years ago, you could have an MBA and you wouldn't know a lot about being able to invest or how to invest and everything like that. Just because the tools weren't there, the vehicles weren't there. So we're in very uncharted, I think, territory.
It is, yeah. And so I say no excuses, right? Because everybody has some type of smartphone. You can literally go on your phone, download an app, and get invested for free today.
Right.
Within a matter of 10 minutes.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And so you were talking about those open conversations that you need to have amongst your peers,
right.
Amongst your associates. But you are in a relationship. So I want to talk about how you have those conversations with your significant other, right? And talk about the conversation of relationship versus finance.
Right. I mean, it's tough because she is very extremely risk adverse. She's not one to she's like, oh yeah, you can put your money there, but it could be gone tomorrow. I'm like, well, listen, if it's gone tomorrow, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world that's not good. The world's not going to be in a good place if it's gone tomorrow. So my little $10,000 is not going to be, and you're very rarely, unless you're messing in the options world, you're very rarely going to lose it all. You know what I mean? So you could definitely catch it and pull back and stop a little bit. So I think it's a tough conversation to have. And I think it's just a learning and growth and understanding of, there are safe vehicles out there. The whole point of an index fund, is to pool a bunch of stuff together. So if Apple decides to just tank, and
you still have Google.
You still have Amazon. You still have, even if you have some of the core stuff, gold and different things like that, you can have to kind of weigh you down and kind of keep you anchored. But that's kind of the conversations that you kind of have to have. You have to show people a little bit, My mom has a stash account that I got her set up on. My mom and dad.
I set my mom up with a Robinhood account, right?
Exactly.
Same thing with my dad, because I'm like, you're getting it to that age, right, where we need to have this conversation, and we need to start saying, okay, if you want to retire and here in a couple of years, what can we do about that?
Right.
Where do you actually stand?
Right. Exactly. And I think the biggest thing probably one of the biggest things in my family's life that I was able to do is I told my mom, hey, it's since 2008, we bought our house in 99.
Yeah.
So they were probably at 7% and happy. I was like, Mom, you got to refinance.
7% interest rate on that mortgage.
Right. Mom, you got to All I know is I'm reading refinance. You gotta refinance.
Yeah.
And they finally refinanced probably 6 or 7 years ago.
When the rates were sitting at around 4%.
Probably 3.5%, 4%, and knocked off like 3 years on the mortgage, like $300 a month. Like it was like life changing. And they're both retired now. And I think part of the ability they got their finances in order was, I like to think, is part of the refinance. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So that's a beautiful thing, and I think just kind of it's like for me, I'm in a good place right now, and you asked me my goals, and I'm like, I'm kind of like, I'm just still celebrating from the goals I just hit. You know what I mean? So it's kind of it's a tough, and it takes discipline, and you're getting into somebody's discipline and how they live their life.
Yeah, because everyone's not the same.
Right.
You might want to set huge, lofty goals, right? You can check those off the box every couple months, right?
Right.
Whereas if you try to set goals for others, they may not align with you personally or how you set your goals, right?
Right.
And I've come to learn that because if you try to have these conversations with other people and say, hey, let's make a savings goal for you, or let's make a budgeting goal, it might not work out because that might not be the type of person they are, right?
Right.
And that's why you have to have that conversation and find out how they spend money, how they track their money, where they're getting their money, see if they have any debt or anything like that, because all of that goes into your financial picture in order for you to move forward.
Exactly. I mean, you could look at some people who say, oh yeah, you're spending $250 a month at Equinox. You need to get that off of your books. You can do something cheaper. But to somebody who's loves to work out and really loves that experience, that $250 is a discount for them. You know what I mean? So, and the same thing can go for food, can go for alcohol, can go for any type of.
Everybody has their vices.
Exactly.
They may not be quote unquote bad for you.
Right.
Like you said, like I think I ran into you at Equinox one time, right?
Yeah.
I love going to the gym, right? In the mornings after work, because that's something that, helps me out, right?
Right.
Not only do I get to stay in shape, but I kind of, work off some stress as well. And so even though it costs $220, $250, that can do a world of help to you.
Right.
Or some people that like to get coffees. And I say, like, you know what? If someone wants to get a coffee, let them, right? As long as they have the plan to be able to afford that. And you can do that through something simple. You can go out and invest in Starbucks, right?
Right.
So now you're owning the company. They're paying you a dividend, right? And you can go
you love
buy
Starbucks so much. Go ahead and go get you someone's stash.
Exactly.
Like, and that way, at least when you're buying, like, I have some Apple stock. When I buy an iPhone, I'm like, hey, I'm helping me out. You know what I mean?
And this is something that's a little off topic, but I want to talk about the financial crisis because it was something that I really didn't understand at the time, because I wouldn't say I was so young, but I was just starting high school around that time, like 10th grade, something like that, where it was kind of affecting a lot of people around me. But I really didn't know how it was personally affecting me. And I really didn't find out the intricacies of the financial crisis until I got to college. And I was doing a case study about how it actually affected the U.S. population.
Right.
So did it really hit home with you, or is it something like kind of me where you really didn't understand until it was over?
Right. So I'm a couple years older. So I had, it was 2008.
Yep.
I was a freshman in college. And again, as you guys can probably tell, I was learning a lot about the corporate world, learning a lot about how the upper class kind of operates in the different vehicles that they have. And honestly, probably I mentioned that the financial world was kind of not, it was unknown to me, but the financial crisis kind of made it a little scary to me as well, because here was all these people who, they were in it for the money. A lot of people enter finance for the money. They enter for what people say are not the best reasons. Sometimes morally, I mean, just to be honest. And I think that was kind of why I was kind of, okay, maybe that's not something I want to do. And then when the financial crisis hit, it was like, man, I don't even know what these people were doing, and now they're getting in trouble for it now. But I actually had teammates of mine on the football team. I had a teammate of mine who came back from college, had his internship, got his investment banking dream job.
Wow.
And guess where it was at?
Lehman Brothers.
He came back into football camp like, cool, senior year, I'm good.
Had a job.
Gonna have probably, $125K probably
walking
promised
in the door
to him as a 22-year-old, scraggly beard, probably and everything. And he really was like, they were like,
we're out of business.
Oh, the company. Oh. So now I've worked for 3 years, spent my really important summer
doing those internships, and it was real. It was definitely real. And I think
I don't know when, and I don't want to wish any negative things, but the terror we've seen in the market, there's some people that aren't with a lot of these vehicles like Stash and M1 and different things like that, and Robinhood. Like there's going to be a turn at some point in time,
and how do you prepare for that? You have your emergency fund. You have your plan laid out, right? Because even though you have $10,000, like you said, in a Robinhood account, that could be gone tomorrow.
Right.
And I wanted to make sure everyone knows that, because even though you're investing in a company, they can go bankrupt and you will lose your entire investment.
Exactly.
So while investments may look good now, and what I like to do is dollar cost average. I like to buy over time. If the stock is going up, I buy. If the stock is going down, if I like the company, I'm going to keep buying. But there is a point in time where the company could go to zero.
Right.
And you could be out of all your money.
Right.
Right. And so how do people prepare for that?
I think just having a good mix of what you can do. There's different asset classes. These are all things I'm figuring out. Between bonds and investing in corporate bonds, it's a little bit more. You're going to have a little bit more safety there.
Yep.
If everything is just going red, you can do things like CDs just to keep some type of money that you're investing in. Those aren't necessarily vehicles that people don't know a lot about, because right now that's not the best return for your money. You know what I mean? So I think people can investigate in some of those different things and if you look up just, I think defensive stocks, not defense stocks.
Exactly.
Like I saw when you said, but defensive stocks. There's definitely areas out there, but it's just not what's hot. It's not gonna be your 12%. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I think when I joined Stash, I was just throwing Amazon, Apple, whatever, and it was just growing. Oh, I woke up with $200 more today. I woke up with $300 more today. So that world is going to we may have a change. It's just kind of looking at that and preparing for that. And, the more you research, the more you see how sophisticated a lot of stuff is behind the scenes. And you watch the CNBCs and what matters on Monday may not matter on Tuesday. You're like, the world's crumbling because of XYZ on Monday, and then it happens again 2 Mondays from now and nobody cares. So it's a lot going on.
It is a lot.
I think what you said, buying things that you're interested in, things that you understand. My healthcare background is what I understand.
So that's how you got into some of those
FDA,
early stocks.
getting some of those early stocks. I still invest in some of that stuff today. That's some of my major holdings in my actual play account, is just kind of how I go through that.
Yep.
I trust these companies because they're investing in stuff that is hot in the market and hot in healthcare. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The Axum one that I did, they work with central nervous system problems. So they're doing a lot of dementia. They're doing a lot of just brain
Which
disorders.
is hitting the older generation.
Right.
Hard.
Right. And you've got the baby boomers that are all going to get older. And so the healthcare is, I could have a whole podcast on healthcare. Like there's a lot of different moving vehicles that are going on there. And so that's a cool place for me to invest personally. And I think kind of staying true to those things and find things you're really passionate about and know about, that's kind of my safeguard.
Yeah. And so I do want to ask this question. And this is a question that I think a lot of people should ask, right? Retirement. Do you plan on working for the next 40 years or 25 years, 30 years, right? Until you are in a position to retire? Or do you see yourself setting something up as far as like a business or some type of side hustle, where that can actually replace some of your income that you're gaining now, and allow you to have that, financial freedom and financial independence to allow you to make a decision that says, hey, you know what? I don't want to do my 9 to 5 anymore. I just want to live my life.
Right. And I think that's, with the union that I'm a part of, I kind of have that. It's like I said, I kind of have that like background. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That basically, if I'm there for 30 years, I get a good package pretty much, and I'm there for 2, so I got 28 to left. and kind of the way I approach my financial world is anything I can do between those 28 years that can maybe make it so I can take a little bit of a smaller package, and that would be great. There's a lot of talk out there about people retiring early, and I took a step back from a lot of there's a lot of fascination with retiring early and working for startups and kind of the go and the internet and a lot of things like that. And I going into the role that I'm in, I stepped back from that a little bit, but there's a lot of traditional things that embedded within all that in the retirement that people don't think about. You know what I mean? Like a lot of the startups and stuff like that don't have a 401k. They don't have,
they're just banking on going public.
And it's a lot of the stuff that you're doing personally. So anything that I can do is going to be just retire early. And then things I'm doing 2 years ago, I didn't know I was going to be where I'm at now. So I'm waiting for the next big thing. I'm always got open ears as far as where's investing, and I love to invest in our community. I love to do different things. I love to get more out there. So I think kind of exploring those opportunities, and as I have more and more money to play with and explore with those in that way.
Okay, and so before I let you get out of here, I do want to talk about some of your goals for 2020. Right. And then if you have some type of 5-year plan, I do want you to discuss that. And just to tell me what you have planned on the horizon.
Okay. Yeah. I think 2020, like I mentioned, I just hit some goals. So I think really kind of figuring out the real estate in my life, what it looks like. Is it going to be something that I buy just a single unit, or if it's going to be something more multifamily and use? Still not closing a door. I'm open to exploring Columbus investments. So I think my goal is to kind of figure out how I'm going to go and where I'm going to move in real estate. And I think the other goal is trying to identify some other alternative investments that I could have, maybe outside of the market, in groups around the community. And I think that's kind of the goal for 2020 is figure that out and kind of make a savings goal. The funny thing is when you get into this stuff, the money it adds up really quickly. You know what I mean?
It really does. So it takes a long time to start. And that first year or so, it feels like it's not going to build up.
Right.
But once you get rolling,
right,
and you start to receive dividends or interest, or you start to get that capital appreciation, it actually adds up pretty quick.
Yeah, $10,000 can make you $1,000 really easily. $50,000 will make you $5,000. So I'm just trying to really kind of figure out the smartest ways to kind of get to those numbers where $100,000 is turning into $10,000 on top of that really easily. So I'm trying to just say that. And so that's 2020.
What about your 5-year plan? Yeah.
5-year plan, marry, kids, real estate. I think that's honestly, those are the three kind of, the big picture. When you hit that 30, when you hit 30, when you hit 30, you see 35 quickly and you see 40 quickly. So just really figuring all that out, just becoming better in my career. There's a lot of business goals I have. I want to just for my office and for the company. And there's a lot of stuff that's wrapped around that, and just figuring out the rest of personal life and stuff like that.
Okay, well, Mark Key, thank you for being on Money Talks the Podcast, Season 1, Episode 5.
Yes,
we're right at midway in the season. I really appreciate this conversation. Honestly, it was amazing, talking about your past and what you have going on in the future. And I think you should be a model for people that are maybe in Columbus or in like a rural area, and they're trying to get out and build, a career or life. You should be the model, right? Because you've done it the right way, man. You started out with 40K, now you're all the way up and close to a quarter M, right? Like those should be some things that people should strive for. But I do want to give you a chance to talk about your social media if anyone wants to reach out to you as well.
Yeah, it's Casual Key on Instagram, Facebook, my name, Mark Key.
LinkedIn as well.
LinkedIn, Mark Key. Love helping out anybody. Love to chat. Like I said, you never know what you're going to pick up from 10 minutes of chatting. And yeah, man, I'm looking to learn. I'm a student, and anything I can help anybody out with, learn from. Personal finance, it's something I have a passion about. I started a program in my old local high school when I first graduated, and I love just kind of sharing anything. So anybody has any questions, reach out.
Okay. Thank you for being on the show, man. Money Talks the Podcast, Season 1, Episode 5. Appreciate it.